You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at KeeleyCompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the two-time national best-selling author of On Fire and In Awe. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, the host of the Live Inspired podcast, and he's the real-life inspiration behind the major motion picture Soul on Fire. Each week, John interviews extraordinary individuals about their life stories so you can more fully live your life story. Here's your host,
hello, my friends.
John
Welcome
O'Leary.
to another Voices of Soul on Fire series. This one's going to be an incredible conversation with a man who, whether he's walking onto a set, onto a lot at Sony, or into a room, changes the room that he walks into. His name is DeVon Franklin. During the conversation that you're about to listen into or watch, you're going to witness a man who opened up his front door, let me into his house in California, and opened up his heart to the rest of us on what he's been through, what he's learned, and ultimately what it means for us in our lives. So who does DeVon Franklin play in the film Soul on Fire? He plays a mighty warrior and one of the heroes in my story, in my life, and in the film, a gentleman named Nurse Roy. Roy shows up in my life the day after I'm burned. He walks me forward, literally, over the 5.5 months that I'm in hospital. He transformed not only my healing physically, but my healing spiritually. And when you listen to this conversation with DeVon, when you pick up on the cues, what makes him tick, you'll find out also not only why he said yes to portraying Nurse Roy, but how he embodies Nurse Roy in his real life. DeVon Franklin is one of my heroes. And after you hear this podcast, he's going to be one of yours. So my friends, buckle up, get ready to be picked up and walk forward into your life with my friend, now yours. His name is DeVon Franklin. DeVon, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me.
This is a treat, man. I've had the honor of interviewing about 760 people in my life.
Wow.
From astronauts to presidents to servants to pastors to cancer survivors, marathon runners, triathletes. And I was standing outside your hotel, this beautiful house today, waiting for you to come on down and let me in. And I don't remember ever being nervous before. Interviewed a lot of people. Never been nervous. I'm nervous this time.
Is that right? Why is that?
It's because I respect you.
Wow.
I respect your work. I respect your life story. I respect your heart. I respect your heartache. I respect the fact that you said yes to us when we invited you to be part of a project.
Yeah.
And so I think the anxiety outside your condominium is the anxiety of doing a job well tonight with you.
Amen.
So, man, I just want to really let you know I'm grateful for you and I'm grateful for this time. So welcome to our Live Inspired podcast, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I can't believe 760.
And now we got 761 with you, man. So we'll finally turn the tide and get some better guests going forward.
I love it.
For folks who don't know you, and I'm going to do that nice long introduction when you're not tuning in, but for the folks who don't know you, if you were to meet someone in a grocery store and they're like, hey, man, I'm John, what's your name? And you said DeVon.
Yeah.
If they asked you, DeVon, what do you do? How do you answer that?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. I don't know. It's something that, I do honestly wrestle with because there are so many things that I do legitimately. I'm a TV and film producer. I am a preacher. I'm an author. I am an actor. I am a, TV personality. All of those things are things that I do. So usually if somebody were to ask me, well, what do you do? I would say, I'm in the entertainment business and I use entertainment as a way to uplift people's spirits.
Let's go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
April 13th, A day you remember well.
Yes, my birthday.
1978.
That's right.
Up a little bit north of where we're gathered here today. You were raised up in Oakland.
Yes.
Talk about aspects of your childhood. I think it's a fascinating origin story.
Yeah, I was raised in the Bay Area. I'm the middle child of 3 boys. And so us middle children, I mean, and no one realizes how hard it is for the middle child.
Amen.
So, that was great. And, was raised with my mother and my father. When I was born, my mother and father were together and raised in the church. And where we were, I was raised in the suburbs of like the Bay Area. So I was born in a place called Livermore. And then my mom and dad lived in Pleasanton. And so, it was very idyllic in terms of the American dream. He was a manager. He started off washing trucks for UPS, and then he became a manager for UPS. And then my younger brother came. And as far as I can remember, it was like after my younger brother came is when things started to, really, start to shift, because my father became an alcoholic and ended up losing his job. And we ended up losing the house and had to move with my grandparents in Richmond, California. So, I have...
Was there a moment? Was there a trigger for your father that caused him to choose a different path?
It was really interesting because, I've done some research about, okay, is alcoholism hereditary? And what I've found is that there's no gene that can be pinpointed as an alcoholic gene. However, what has been deduced in research is that it's environmental on some level. Like if you grew up in the home of an alcoholic, you are, predisposed or you have a higher potential for alcoholism. So my father grew up in the home with his mother and father, and his mother and father were alcoholics. And then one of his brothers, his younger brother, was an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And so as he was working at UPS, they would go and do these things that they called liquid lunches. Where during the lunch hour you would drink. And, he initially did it and just thought like, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. You know what I mean? Like it's just social, hanging out. But for him, as he started to drink socially, he tapped into maybe something that was lying dormant within him, which was this predisposition for alcoholism. And so he would overdrink at lunch. Sometimes they would call my mother to come get him to say, hey,
Sorry.
Donald is, he's not fit to drive. Can you come get him? And she would come pick him up from work, and it's like picking him up from work. He got drunk at work. I mean, that's such a, don't really hear that very often. So that's what happened and why he, did that. I don't think that from what my uncle and people have told me, like he wasn't aware that this was his predisposition. But then once it kind of hit, alcohol for him was like hard drugs for someone else.
Right.
That the more that he tried to stop, he couldn't help himself.
What was he like at home?
Most of the memories that I have of him, he was drunk. And I do have a few memories when he was sober, and he was great, a lot of fun, very loving, very kind, really loved hanging out with us. Liked to joke a lot, liked to have fun. And then those memories of him being drunk, just depend. Some days he'd be very aggressive, kind of loud, a little belligerent. So yeah, most of my memories were that. But what was interesting is my mother never talked bad about him. She never said a negative word.
While they were married, after they were married, or both?
To this day.
How about that?
To this day. To this very moment.
Why do you think that is?
I think because she just, loved him and really saw the best in him and wanted us to see the best in him. And so she never to this day has said anything negative about him.
You were 9 when your father passed away.
That's right. Yeah.
You've been in both your books and also in interviews very candid about losing your dad and how dramatic that was, not only to lose this father figure from your life, but the experience of actually being called into the morgue and kissing your father goodbye. Would you share this experience from the perspective of a kid going through it?
Yeah. I mean, it was tough, man. I remember, I did a book that came out not too long ago called It Takes a Woman.
Yes.
And it was a book I did with Audible, and it's an audio only book. And I talk about our story, my family's story. And I start the book, narrating my perspective of my father dying. And he had a heart condition from what we found out later. But for whatever reason, he didn't take it seriously, as sometimes men tend to do. So I remember he had had a heart attack, and we were with him because he came to see my older brother deliver a Martin Luther King speech. And it was probably maybe 2 years before he died. And so he had a mild heart attack at that event. Went to the hospital. They checked him out. You know, as far as we knew, he was going to be all right. And then we wouldn't see him all the time. So he resurfaced, and he was living in Oakland, working in a soul food restaurant and living in the back. And so we would go see him, and he had another heart attack. And so we went to the hospital to see him, and he was like, look, I'm going to get out of here. I really want to get my family back. I want to get back into church. And what I remember was that, and I think might have been the next day, we were going to go see him after school. And, the phone rang, and my mother, answered and started screaming. And we just knew, me and my brothers knew what that meant. And my mother drove us to my aunt's house, picked up my aunt, and then we went to the hospital. And my mother left us with my aunt in the lobby. We didn't know where she went at the time. And then she came back and she said, come with me. And so she took us to see him. And he was, in the morgue. And there he was, laid out on the table. And she just said, kiss your father goodbye. And we did. And you don't know a cold until you've touched the cold of death. It's hard to describe. And in that moment, I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know how to process it. But I just said, okay, I don't understand this, but I trust somehow it'll all figure itself out. And I didn't want to go to the funeral at the time, but my family insisted that I go. And I'm glad they did, so I have those memories. But I never really quite understood, especially at that time, how to put it in perspective.
Seems to me when you're a child and your father's an alcoholic and there's separation in the family and then you lose him dramatically, that you kind of make one of two choices usually. One is to begin making every poor choice in the book.
Right.
And becoming addicted and becoming a petty criminal and then going downhill quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens often.
Yeah.
And alternatively, it's to become the angel child and to overproduce. And to sit in the front of the classroom, show everybody else the different way forward, even when you don't feel like living that way forward. Which path did you find yourself on?
The latter,
You're self-described at that age, Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, I know. Oh my goodness. What's crazy about that is when I was in school, that's what they would call me, because I was always on time, always dressed well, head of the class, honor roll, all of it. Yes. And so people were calling me Mr. Perfect. And at the time, there was like a wrestler named Mr. Perfect. WWF is what it used to be called before WWE. And he was in the WWF. And at the time, I thought that was like great. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, Mr. Perfect. Cool. But I didn't realize until I got to become an adult that, that's not the best.
Why not? Because a lot of our listeners are striving for that. And not only are they striving, they're rearing children, and they have them in every practice, every choir thing, every church service, every honor program, working on resumes, repracticing the ACT, on and on toward perfection.
Yeah.
So why is striving toward being Mr. Perfect not the right call?
Because to all the things you just listed, all of those things, you can certainly raise up an achiever. But can you raise up someone who's comfortable being a beer? Just being who they are. That is the hardest and the most beautiful thing in life, when someone is comfortable being who they are. Because, you can push a child to perfection and achievement, and certainly some children will rise to the occasion. And I'm not saying achievement is not important. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if I achieve, and I understand what that is, but I have no sense of self, those achievements will become addictive. I need to keep achieving in order to feel good about me, or in order to have my parents' approval, or in order to be looked at in a way that I can then say, oh, well, this person is saying I'm doing a good job, so that makes me feel good. But once the achievements stop, or once you miss the mark, if you don't have a sense of self, if you don't know how to be, then that will devastate you. And so I believe we have a culture that we're raising of a lot of achievers. That's fine. But are we raising people that know how just to be?
Unfortunately, we got to keep recording because I think we could end the podcast right there and say, people, I think we got enough. DeVon, go back to making dinner for your family. We're good to go. But I want to learn about what that Mr. Perfect looked like, what it led to, and ultimately when you learned what you just said to me.
Yeah.
Because that's it, man.
That's it.
One thing to say it.
Yeah.
But you had to learn it first. And it wasn't at age 9, 10, or 11. It took a little bit. So as you're striving on as a kid, what kind of stuff were you involved in?
I was acting in school plays.
What got you into acting in school plays?
You know, I actually have no idea. I don't remember. I just remember that we had a teacher in middle school. His name was Mr. Gamba. And he would take popular plays and kind of do spoofs of them. So instead of the Music Man, it was called like the Miserable Music Man. And so I was the lead of that play. And I don't know, I always had a good stage presence. I was always well-spoken, always had some charisma. And I just think when you're in middle school, it's like, oh, okay, you're good enough. Come on. And I did it and I enjoyed it. So I was doing that. I was playing basketball. I was on the honor roll, as I mentioned earlier. I was involved in church. The year that my father died, my great uncle, he and my great aunt started a church in Oakland called Wings of Love, Maranatha Ministries. And so I was very involved in church. I mean, you know, I was even the director of the youth choir.
Did you ever push that away, or were you always all in on church?
I was always all in on church. I always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know, we were at church all day, and we would get there in the morning. Because, see, I was raised observing Sabbath.
Yes.
So Friday night sundown to Saturday night sundown is the day of worship. And I wouldn't, you know, go to school games and all that, and school dances and that kind of thing. So
before you continue, how'd you feel about that as a kid?
For the most part, I was cool with it. And then there were some times when it was like a big dance. I was like, Ma, let me go, you know, please. Or like a big game. Let me go, you know. So rarely she would let us do it, but sometimes she would. But overall, I enjoyed the Sabbath. You know, it was good. It was just, I didn't know anything else. It was like, oh, this is just the way life is. Sabbath morning, we would go to Sabbath school, which was like at 9:30. Then we would do church service at 11. Then we would go downstairs at like 2 to eat. And then we come back upstairs for the afternoon program at like 4. And then sometimes there would be a social later on the night. So we were at church all the time. So that was a big part of my upbringing or my experience when I was around that time of, you know, Mr. Perfect.
At 15, I was rolling around in the dirt, watching baseball games and getting C's on my report card at age 15. You preached your first sermon.
Yeah, I did.
Come on, man. And from your own recollection, and I'm sure it's accurate, you did all right.
Yeah, it went well. I did it was our second youth day at the church I grew up in, Wings of Love. For the first youth day, my older brother spoke. He didn't really preach. He kind of gave a little bit like a speech almost. And then because I was kind of the next in line and I was also pretty outspoken, they were like, okay, it's your turn. And to this day, I mean, one of the greatest motivational speakers to me is Les Brown. And he wrote a book at that time called Live Your Dreams.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at the Bible and I was looking at his book and pulling, you know, ideas from his book and the Bible, and then, you know, preached. It might have even been the title of his book. Preached, and people were just like, oh, wow, that's amazing. You did great. You got to go into ministry. You know, you got to go become a preacher. I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to movies.
Who'd you model your style after? And most of the guests I mentioned, we've had more than a couple that I've interviewed, and I read their books and listen to some of the podcast interviews and some of the television programs or movies they've been in. In addition to all of that, which is a lot already for you, you have so many sermons, so many preaching topics online.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake of listening to one, which led to another, which led to another.
Oh my goodness.
And they just kept coming my way. You got an unusual style, so convicting, and so charismatic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, it comes from your heart, but man, you're rolling. Where does that originate? Who are you modeling that after?
Yeah.
Who are you trying to be more like?
That's a good question. You know, me, my great uncle, you know, the pastor of the church, he was a pretty dynamic speaker, very dynamic. And I loved, obviously, Martin Luther King as a speaker, Malcolm X as a speaker, Les Brown as a speaker. You know, all of these great orators were definitely influential for me. And my thing always, and I think it's just how I view life from that day to this in terms of preaching, is really trying to get to practical application. Because even with the first sermon, live your dreams. I'm talking very practically about, okay, how do you apply what the word is saying towards your dreams? And so that's just something that has always been a part of my style or my approach. And then also, I believe from a place of being convicted, it's similar to acting. Like, if I don't believe it, if I don't believe what I'm doing or saying, nobody's going to. And sometimes people will get convicted because of your conviction as a speaker.
For sure.
You're a dynamic motivational speaker. If you get up there and you're not really sure about what you're saying, or, you're not energetic about it, why would someone want to be energetic about your message if you aren't?
That's right.
If your message doesn't excite you, it definitely not going to excite me. So me being excited and being convicted comes from me, one, knowing that's a part of how I convey and get someone else to connect to what I'm saying.
Yes.
But also, I try to find things that I'm really convicted about. So it's not a gimmick. It's just natural.
You do a couple other things that are not unique to you, but package all up, I think, highly unique to you.
Yeah.
You put it all in one package. You make them laugh probably every 5 minutes. Just like that, dude.
Right.
I mean, it is like every 5 minutes we're laughing about something. And I think that is unusual for some sermons, some pastors.
Yeah.
You do it brilliantly.
Thank you.
You also have a turn to a neighbor and share. Not like, hey, tell me the time in your life when you got burned, where God showed up for you and what you learned from that.
Yeah.
More like turn to your neighbor and say, God is with you. Then turn back and say, yes, he is.
Yeah.
I hear the whole church, whether it's 50 or tens of thousands, follow your lead.
Yeah.
And it's cool, I think, to draw people in, not to your words, but to theirs.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
to your story, but ultimately to theirs.
Yeah, because also it's like, and again, this because you speak in front of audiences all around the world. And when you're in front of an audience, when someone's sitting there, it's so easy for the mind to wander and so easy for people to check out. It's just very easy. I mean, think about us. If we go to an event, a church, a motivational conference, and we're listening to someone speak, it's very easy to just be bored or wander, whatever. So when I say turn to your neighbor, it engages them. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. So, who am I talking to?
Yes.
Oh, right. We're talking to me. It's like, because it engages in that. It engages them.
Yes.
It engages them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, practically.
Yes.
So they're really in it with me. So that I'm not, talking at them. I'm talking with them.
Beautiful.
May I submit for your consideration? Right. So like, hey, I'm just saying, this is for your consideration. You can it may not work for you, but I just want you to consider
How
this.
scripted are you?
It's like one of just in terms of learning to preach and, my uncle, giving me a lot of books and kind of helping me over the years. And then also when I got to LA, the church that I was involved in, I was in elders training. And one of the books was about like basically noteless preaching. That book's theory was that when you get up there to preach, if you aren't operating off of notes, you're going to be able to be more impactful, more dynamic, and connect with people. But the key to being able to do that is not just getting up there and just speaking off the top of your head, but it's about preparing in advance. So every sermon I do, I've prepared hours and hours in advance, and I have it all written out. And then I try to, I don't want to say memorize it, but I try to really make sure that I understand what my points are.
Yeah.
And most of the time I'm, preaching from the Bible. So I usually will have a physical Bible in my hand when I'm preaching. And so as I'm going through the text, I will be reminded, certain key words will remind me of things in my notes that I wanted to talk about.
Right.
So it's not scripted per se, but it's very well studied. And then once I'm up there, then I can be free.
Totally.
Right. Because I know the scripture. I know what I want to say. I have a sense of how I want to say it. And then I can just be in the moment. And that's where the real, magic happens, when you're just free in the moment and people are just on a ride with you.
So I'm 7 questions in. I have 209 to go. So
great.
First time I've ever seen DeVon frown was right there when he finds out he's stuck with O'Leary for the next 3 hours. But here we go, DeVon.
Never that.
Eventually, believe it or not, you graduate with honors from high school.
Yeah.
You go on to USC.
Yeah.
Why USC?
because I wanted to be in the entertainment business. And USC still does, the number one film school in the country or the world. And I knew I needed to be in Los Angeles because this is where the entertainment business is pretty much housed. And so I wanted to go to USC or UCLA. Originally, I wanted to go to the USC Film School as an undergrad, but I got rejected from the film school. But I did get into USC general admission. And once I went to go visit UCLA, because I got in there too, once I went to go visit them, I really felt like God was calling me to USC. And so I went ahead and accepted admission at USC and decided to become a business major and a film minor because business, I was always just very interested in the entertainment business. So I said, all right, well, let me specialize in business. And that was great because that actually gave me time, because the film program, for the major, it's a very rigorous program. But as a minor, it wasn't as rigorous. And the business school major was rigorous, but not crazy.
Right.
So it gave me time my freshman year to add in an internship. And I got this internship working for the company that managed Will Smith. And that was my foot in the door of entertainment. And every single opportunity I've had in entertainment comes directly from that opportunity. Awesome. Yeah.
Why does an 18-year-old kid up in Oakland want to get into entertainment?
I don't have a good answer for it, but as best I can understand that, my motivation at that time. I just remember movies like, Rocky and Back to the Future and The Color Purple and just movies. What was the other big movie? E.T., a lot of the Spielberg film, Jaws, all these great films. They just captivated my imagination. And I was like, wow, how does this happen? I was watching TV shows like Different World and other shows. And I just said, wow, I need to understand about the business of entertainment. I said, I love this. And also, I think there was definitely a correlation between, the death of my father, and my mother didn't have money for therapy. So going to church and watching entertainment became my therapy. And so I think there was something in the movies I was attracted to. I mean, even at a young age, I was really gravitated to the inspirational movies, the movies that were uplifting or had something positive to say, because I felt like for me, that's what I needed, right? As a kid, losing my father, feeling like people didn't know quite who I was or where I was. I found myself in entertainment, found myself in movies. So that, I think, is probably what motivated me to ultimately pursue that as a career.
Grandfather, great-grandfather, great-uncle, you're inundated in the church world.
Yeah.
And sometimes some folks think church world and Hollywood world don't see eye to eye. So you're coming from this origin story of all these folks who are Bible-believing leaders, and they have one vision for your life, and you might have a different one. How did that work out?
Well, initially, when I would tell people, especially in my church community or my church family, that I wanted to go to Hollywood, they were like, oh man, well, that's Sodom and Gomorrah, that's the devil's playground and all these things. And, why don't you go to ministry, or why don't, and I just said, look, I gotta go. I just believe that that's where I'm supposed to be. And you guys are just gonna have to pray for me, because I gotta go. I have to see. And I'm glad that at that age, I was that convicted and not swayed by their, not everyone, but there were some that definitely didn't think it was a good idea. But I'm glad I wasn't swayed by that. I was very clear, like, no, this is what I need to do. And this is where I need to be. Not knowing that it was going to be successful. I didn't know it all, but I just knew that this is where I had to be.
You're in USC, a very difficult school to begin with.
Yeah.
You have complicated classes, and you're an intern.
Mm-hmm.
And it's real work. What kind of stuff were you doing as an intern?
Oh, man. First of all, I had a full class load, full units. I think it was 18 units at the time. And I was doing the internship, and I was also doing a work study job at the Hillel Jewish Center on campus. So, I was busy. And so in terms of the internship, it was getting coffee, picking up dry cleaning, picking up the lunch order.
Did that feel beneath you?
No, not at all. I mean, I was raised in the church, and me being raised in the church, and my uncle was very involved in the civil rights movement, and very much kind of a pull yourself up from your bootstraps kind of guy. And so he really instilled that in us. So at the church that we grew up in, every Sabbath, I was there, cleaning up and putting up chairs and putting up tables and all of it. I just was used to serving. So, when it came to the internship, it was about me thinking of trying to figure out, okay, well, what's the path to service here? Like, how do I serve? Oh, okay, this is the way I can serve. And then I figured, well, the service became seams. And what I mean by that is that, if you go get your shirt altered, you're wearing a blue button up. If you go get that altered, the way they're going to alter that is they're going to look at the seam and they're going to open the seam, because that's where change can happen. And so, so
He preached on this last week, and I'm not that impressed.
I did. You're funny. So for me, I'm a young kid just trying to make a name for myself. And I'm like, how do I make a name? Right? Okay, service is the way that I can actually, find the seam and make change and find a way to insert myself.
What did that lead to, DeVon?
Well, that led to everything. I mean, it's like people started noticing, like, who's this kid, from USC. And also one of the things that was very important was they offered me the internship. But before I took it, I told them, I said, listen, I observe Sabbath. I said, so I don't work on Friday night and Saturday. So I said, if taking the internship would require me to work on the Sabbath, I won't take it. So I just said that up front, like, hey, I'm not going to do it. And they were like, no problem. We'll work around that. So people also were like, well, who's this kid with this faith and whatnot? So as I started to make a name for myself through the service, copying scripts, filing, faxing, all of these things, then I got more opportunities. So there was a guy, his name was Benny Medina. He was one of the owners of the company. He's still around now. He manages Jennifer Lopez. And at the time, he was managing P. Diddy and Mace. And so this was right after Notorious B.I.G. died. And so they were, on top of the world. And so I, as an intern, would drive Benny around, drive him to rehearsals, to studio, to award shows. So that was like, man, I was learning and I was so grateful. I was like, this is awesome. I know it sounds crazy. It's like, I was like literally his Uber when I was in the office, but I loved it because I learned. I could listen to him, make phone calls. I'd be out in the field with him, seeing how he was doing what he was doing. And I got a chance to get what I wanted, which was information and opportunity. And then not only did that happen, that also got me on the radar of Will Smith. And he and I, even at that time, started to kind of build a rapport. And he was very impressed with the work that I was doing. And I ended up leaving that company when Will started his own company in the junior year of my college career. He started a company called Overbrook Entertainment. I was Overbrook's first intern. From that day to this, Will and I have been really cool. He's like a mentor figure. He's like a big brother. Whenever I need advice, he's always there. I just was at the house a few weeks ago, and just, man, he's such a man of God. People don't know that about him. He's a man of God.
I'm only kind of joking when I say I have hundreds of questions. I really do. And we won't get through all of them. One that I did not write down, but it's on my heart to ask is, have worked with and love Will Smith.
Absolutely.
And the world has a very convicted opinion of him right now.
Yeah.
And I would just like for you to tell our listeners and viewers, who's Will Smith?
Yeah. He is one of the most amazing, generous, kind-hearted, intelligent, spiritual, talented, giving, magnanimous people I have ever met. He truly is an incredible individual, and he is consistently on a pursuit for excellence, for growth, for expansion, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And this is going to sound crazy, but it's true. He, in terms of my relationship with God, in terms of being a better, loving Christian, Will Smith has had more of an impact on me than any minister that I know. That's the type of man that he is. And also, when you're living your life in the public, we all have our moments, right? But most time, nobody sees them. Right? So when you're living in the public, one of the challenges is that when you have your moments, everybody sees it. But those moments are only there to underscore the truth of our humanity. Going back to perfection. None of us are going to be perfect. We're not. The diamond is more valuable the more flaws, because it's rare, it's unique, it's specific, it's different. And too often when we have our moments, we get down on ourselves. But this is what makes us human. well, yeah, okay, I looked at that. Maybe I could have done that differently. And that's what I love about Will, is that he's always on a journey to become better. He's always on a journey to help those around him become better in every possible way that he can. And for me personally, having that kind of model, for not only professional development, but personal development as well, has really made a huge difference.
Thank you. Let's talk about some of the milestones professionally. Then I want to shift into relationships and then go through. I wrote down a bunch of quotes.
Okay.
You won't get through all of them.
Okay.
You're just so gifted at sharing your heart. And so we're going to go through a couple of those to wrap up in a moment. Professionally, after graduating university, what were some of the things you did first and what did that lead to?
Sure. I became an assistant when I graduated for Will Smith's producing partner and manager. And then I was there for about 2 years, and then I left and became a junior executive for this producer, like working in the film department. And then I was there for about a year and a half, and then I got a job as a studio executive working for MGM. And I worked on films like Be Cool, which was the sequel to Get Shorty with John Travolta and Uma Thurman. And then I worked on a movie with Queen Latifah called Beauty Shop. And then MGM got sold to Columbia Pictures. And I was able to make the transition to Columbia Pictures as an executive once the sale went through. And I worked on movies like Pursuit of Happiness and 7 Pounds and Hancock and 21 and Captain Phillips, Pink Panther 2, Jumping the Broom, Sparkle, Heaven is for Real. I mean, so many movies. I'm just, those are just a few of them. And then I ended up, while I was at Columbia Pictures as an executive, I got an opportunity to write my first book. And that book was called Produced by Faith.
Yes. How
to Enjoy Real Success Without Losing Your True Self. And so I wrote that. And then I did a movie called Heaven is for Real, which was very successful at the box office. And that gave me kind of enough cachet to start my own company. And so I ended up quitting my job and asked the chairman of Columbia Pictures to give me my own deal. And she said yes. And I started my own production company about 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, actually. 10 years ago this year. It's amazing because Heaven is for Real came out 10 years ago. Came out Easter 10 years ago. That's amazing. And then so I have made everything from Miracles from Heaven to Breakthrough, The Star, the movie Flamin' Hot that just came out for Disney and Hulu, and, have so many other films that are coming up, and written, 6 books along the way, and TV and preaching and all that good stuff.
How do you decide what to say yes and no to? You mentioned the films alone would be full-time work.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned 6 big books. And then every weekend, it seems you're at a different church preaching. Mm-hmm. And then occasionally you're in front of businesses or other organizations speaking. You're serving in the community.
Yeah.
You got a million things going on, and you could have a million more or 900,000 less.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide what to say yes and no to?
I got to feel it. I have to feel like, oh, okay, this feels right. Okay, I'm going to do that. It starts there. I just have to feel it like, oh, okay, yeah, I feel like I need to do that. And that feels good. And then also, depending on what it is, it's like the feeling and the finances. It's like, oh, okay, all right, it feels good. And, what do the finances look like? And if the two are in alignment, then I do it. There are some things that feel good, but I'm like, oh, the finances, I don't know. Or I might have to wait and, or the finances might be good, but the feeling's not there. So I'm like, ooh, I can't do that. But that's really how I do it. I just really, and also because everything I do is the same thing, just in different ways.
Yeah.
It's all, for the most part, about inspiration, information, motivation.
Yes.
So whether someone's reading one of my books, okay, what's the book about? About inspiring them, informing them, motivating them. What are the movies about? Inspiration, information, motivation. What are the roles about? What are they acting about? Most of the roles have been inspirational or motivational. When I'm preaching, that's what I do. When I'm on TV, that's what I do. So it's not that hard for me to do it because it all is like me just doing the same thing in different ways. Mm-hmm. It's just different forms of expression. I think maybe if I was like making horror films over here and writing inspirational books here and doing stand-up comedy, I don't know, that might be a little bit more challenging. But for me, it's the same wheel, it's just different spokes.
Before we recorded, you asked me how my family was doing. And for you have a family. You also had a family, Megan Good.
Yeah.
Decade marriage.
I know.
in the very, very, very bright light of Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
With you, not only your star shining, Megan's a star.
Yes, she is, without a doubt.
Known and beloved around the world, man.
Absolutely.
And so talk at first about what it's like to be in a relationship where everywhere you go, people are watching. What's that like?
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, because let me put it this way. It's like when we were together, I was like, yes, Megan is famous. And by default, me being with her, certainly people came to know more about me because of my association and marriage to her. But it's not like we're at Jay-Z or Beyonce level of fame, right? So we could still go out and people would see us, but it wouldn't be like inundated or anything like that. Now, maybe if we were at the Beyonce, Jay-Z level, the answer may not have immediately said fun. But for me, it was fun, right? It was like, okay, cool. We go out, we have a good time. I was like, okay, yeah, people come over, want to take a picture. Great. It was all love. It was good energy. And sometimes if we didn't want to be bothered, we just wouldn't go out, right? Or we would choose where we went to. Yeah. But in general, I never felt any negativity about having a public marriage. It just felt like it came with the territory.
You wrote a book.
I know.
It struck me in almost any interview when you have a book out, people are interviewing you to celebrate the book you wrote.
Yeah.
And I felt in doing the recon for this interview, many of the interviews where you two were together, it seems like people were interviewing you almost to get you. It seemed like they weren't celebrating the choice you and Megan made.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were trying to poke holes in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, no, there were definitely some interviews that I remember that were like that. So no, I think your assessment is accurate.
Talk about that. Talk about what was the book about? What were you hoping that readers might receive when they read it?
Sure. The book is called The Wait, and it was really about the power of delayed gratification. And we talked about our marriage, and we talked about waiting until marriage to have sex, and talked about the value of that and what it meant to us, and also shared some of our personal relationship journey that led us to one another, and really went through a lot of principles that anyone, whether you're in a relationship or not, could kind of say, oh, okay, here's how I practice delayed gratification. And there was also a lot of science we put in the book and a lot of research to talk about what happens when you wait, not even just waiting for sex, just about anything in life. Because so often because we're in a culture that practices instant gratification. And not everything, most things that are worthwhile or long lasting do not happen immediately. And so the book really gives readers tips and tools on how to embrace the wait, whatever wait that particular reader is in. And so we wrote that book 2-3 years into our marriage, and it was very successful. New York Times bestselling book, sold all around the world.
Received.
Yeah. Very well received. Still is to this day.
With that positive marriage, with that positive book, with 10 years of marriage, eventually the relationship doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go too deep into what happened there. What I will say is when things fall apart, typically one side blames another.
Yeah.
And in particular, when this thing is in such a bright light.
Yeah.
I've looked and I found nothing where there's finger pointing, where there's garbage being thrown across the fence, where there's even tones of animosity. It seems like there's sadness and there's need for healing, but there's not blame shifting.
Right. Yeah, no, because for a number of reasons. One, our love was real, and we did not split up because we weren't in love, or we didn't love each other. That wasn't the reason. It wasn't falling out of love, right? So, for me, that commitment to love her was intact then, and it's still intact now. Even if we're not married, there's no lack of love in my heart for her at all. So when you talk about looking and there's really not any negativity, in part it's because we both, I believe, respect one another and care about one another and care about one another's well-being. And I know for me, what I know about her is she is a genuine and sensitive person. So as a man, no matter what I feel about the reasons that led up to us splitting, as a man, I can't find in my heart any justification to say something that would cause harm to a woman that I have spent 10 years of my life with, that I deeply love. Like, I can't find any justification, no matter how I may feel about certain things that happen in our marriage. This is a sensitive, genuine woman of God. As a man of God, I can't find it in my heart to get out and say anything in the public that would disparage her or that would take a shot. I won't do that. I don't believe in that, you know, and that's why, because there really is genuine love there.
You've written about how we both bring brokenness into relationship.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. First is, in that marriage, what did you discover about yourself that you loved? That like in that marriage, 10 years?
Yeah. It's a long time.
15.
Yeah.
What did you discover? Like, wow, man, I didn't even know this about myself until this time with Megan.
One, like, I didn't know I was fun. You know what I mean? Like, we had a lot of fun. Just, you know, and most of my life, I'm like, you know, very achievement focused, career focused. And so when we got married, it was like, oh man, this is fun. You know, Megan's an artist. She's an actress. So, you know, she lives just a different lifestyle. You know, so that was very cool for me. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like everything doesn't have to be, you know, 9 to 5 or buttoned up. Like just sometimes you just got to be in the moment and live and enjoy it. And I liked that.
Yes.
So I really learned like, oh, okay, I'm more fun than I gave myself credit for. And I also realized in the marriage, like, wow, I really take a lot of pride and duty in being of service. I really do. Like I knew that in my career, but like truly in marriage, I'm like, oh, okay, this is part of my DNA. When I'm with somebody, I'm into the details of their life. You know, what do they need? How can I be there for them? Not at the expense of myself per se, but just being attentive, right? Like I'm like, what matters to you matters to me. And so that was also, you know, something that I really took out in a positive way. Like, oh wow, yeah, I really love being of service.
And then sometimes when we are in a relationship, we realize also what we don't love about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's really only when we step in, when we're in the same car with someone all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, that you recognize, my gosh, this thing about me is broken.
Yeah. Well, you know, going back to what we talked about earlier, like, so buying in to an achievement-oriented identity at times can make for a very empty person. Because, okay, well, when you're not achieving, who are you? What do you like? What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? What do you like to eat? What do you like to wear?
Yeah.
So for me, when I realized in the marriage that as much as I had a sense of what I was achieving professionally, you know, writing the books, speaking, making movies, all of that, I didn't really have a strong sense of self. So then, in the absence of having a strong sense of self, then for marriage to work, in my opinion, in my experience, both people need to have a strong sense of identity, and they bring that to one another. And then 1 + 1 = 1. So if both have a strong sense of self and a strong identity, and they bring that together, then the union can have a strong identity because that's what both are bringing. So for me, I don't believe that in my who I was as a person and me liking me and me really knowing me, I don't think I really brought that to the marriage. So as a result, she was, and to this day, as far as I know, is very, you know, understanding who she is and understanding what she likes and very strong in that. And so in some ways, for me, that was great. But then what happened was I would gravitate to her strength and not cultivate my own. And the problem comes that in a marriage, in a healthy marriage, especially as a man, I don't believe any man in a marriage or otherwise has a position to dominate a woman in any way. I think in marriage, in my experience, a woman though also, it doesn't want to be dominated, but likes being led, would like to be led. And part of that leadership comes from strength. So if I don't have a sense of self, then my leadership is not going to be as strong. And then I'm going to defer. And in some instances, yeah, that's fine. But who are you? So for me, long answer to your question, for me, I realized in many areas, yes, I was very strong with the achievement. And yes, I was great at serving and being attentive. But I was very weak in certain areas of knowing myself, knowing what I was about, knowing what I wanted, and then bringing that leadership to the marriage. And I think that was really one of the cracks in the foundation, that me as a man, I was not really strong in my sense of self. And then part of what that is like, when you or I are not strong in ourself, especially in a relationship, what happens is we end up acquiescing. We actually, like, certain things we may not like, or certain things that we want to see different, we sometimes don't express, because it's like, well, no, I don't want to rock the boat, or I'm just going to go with the flow, or I don't want my partner to be upset and all that. But what happens is that if I'm not true to me, even in the context of a marriage, even if it causes an argument, if I'm not expressing my truth, that marriage is not going to be very truthful. And as a result, it'll be much weaker. So I learned from me, like, oh, DeVon, you have been an achiever all your life. But then going back to what I said earlier, once the, divorce happened and the marriage didn't work, that was for me the result of what I characterize as a faulty belief system. Because I just believed that, like, oh, if I can, I can fix anything, I can fix anyone, I can achieve my way through this. No, I couldn't. You can't. No. So then I had to then stop for a moment and assess. I had to look. Instead of pointing the finger, I had to look in the mirror. What was my role? What are the things that I could have done differently? What did I learn from here? From this? What did I learn from her? How do I apply that? How do I heal from it? How do I learn from it? And one of the greatest gifts, as painful as it has been, and when I say it's painful, it has been painful. That's the part about being in the public that is very painful. It's fun when everything's going great.
Yeah.
But when it's not, and everywhere you go, everybody knows, oh, you're the guy. Y'all didn't work out. Why? You wrote a book and all this kind of stuff. So for me, the greatest gift to come out of it was the process of learning who I am, what I'm about. And not just that, being okay with advocating for myself in certain ways. Like, you have a team, you know what I mean? That helps you do what you do. For me, what I noticed was, because I really didn't have a strong sense of self, even though I had strong achievements, what would happen, even with my team, I wouldn't speak up. I wouldn't hold them accountable. I wouldn't express what I needed. And then, say, hey, if it's not being done, like, because I was so concerned, like, oh, I'm afraid of their feelings and I don't want them to be upset and all this kind of stuff. So if it's anywhere, it's everywhere, right? If it's anywhere, it's everywhere. If you or I have cancer, we don't just have cancer in our arm, we got cancer. And if there's an area that we're not standing up for ourselves, then that's going to affect everything that we do. And so, long answer to your question, but that's one of the greatest things that I learned, that I didn't like about myself, but then that it became a thing to learn to like about myself. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, DeVon, this is who you are. This is what you like. This is the type of life that you want. This is what the contributions you want to make. And then also just learning to be comfortable just being me. Like, that is still, I haven't perfected it. Again, it's not that I dislike who I am. It's not that. But so much of me liking who I am has been directly connected to what I'm doing, not who I'm being. So I've really been working on just the being. Like, hey, no matter where I am, no matter what I do, I'm DeVon.
So good, man. I mean, the agony a child felt when he was 9 turned him to performing.
Absolutely.
And the agony a man experienced when he lost his first love, his marriage, a decade of being in the same bed with the woman he was wild about, turned into letting go, surrendering, and starting to try to fall in love with himself.
Yeah.
Like that's
That's deep. That's deep. I hadn't even thought about it like that. But yeah, that's true.
Who guided you toward recognizing I can't earn my way? I can't love my way into some other relationship. I can't get a next part to heal this thing. I've just got to take some time off and figure out really who I am and whose I am and how to fall in love with me again.
Man, now listen, pain is the greatest teacher, period. And so the pain of it not working the way that I intended it for it to work and the way I wanted it to work, that pain, I had a choice. Either I numb it or I listen to it. And sometimes I think a lot of people end up numbing it.
For sure.
You know, whether it's through watching TV, scrolling on social media, overeating, drinking. A lot of people,
Most people are addicted.
It could even be going to church. You know, I love going to church. I go to church all the time, but sometimes people go to church because they don't want to feel. They don't want to feel. But God allows us to have pain because the pain teaches us where we need to heal. So for me, the greatest teacher was pain, the pain that I was feeling. It was like, yo, I can't get up and preach right now. I can't go out there and talk about anything. I can't do it. I can't post on social media like I'm fine, because I'm not. At that time when the divorce happened, I'm like, I'm not fine. So I have to listen to what this pain is telling me. And that, took the form of therapy, life coaching, a lot of reading, a lot of journaling, a lot of prayer, a lot of thinking. I probably lived in a hotel for a year after the divorce and spent a lot of time just contemplating, and just processing and sifting and sorting through all of it and trying to better understand. Because again, like, it's a peculiar experience and a very unique experience to have written a book and traveled the world on some level promoting the book. But and again, I love the book. I think if I were to do it again, I would have waited to maybe year 10 to do the book. And here's why. Because we were showing people a recipe for a dish that hadn't come out of the oven yet. We were showing people like, hey, here's how you get, like, this the recipe. Here's how you get to put it. But it's not fully baked yet. We don't actually know what we have. So, at the very start of our marriage, we're out here promoting this idea and sharing our story, which in and of itself wasn't a bad thing, and it's helped a lot of people. Sure. But in terms of our inner dynamic, a couple years in, you're still learning each other. So I feel like, the fact that we did write that book, and then, years later, the marriage ends in divorce. I just had to take some time and say, okay, wow, that is, man, that's hard. That is hard. It's just hard, man. I'm not even sugarcoat it.
Months before it was announced publicly that you were going to get a divorce, I'm listening to you on interviews and people are asking about the marriage, and you're in a bright light, man. So you are.
Yeah.
I'm wild about it and things are good. And like, there's just this pain right below the surface.
Absolutely.
Of what's really going on. And you can't go there yet.
No, could not. Especially at that time. No, I couldn't at all. And since then, it's like, I don't think that even now I could be, as clear about what I'm saying if I just hadn't taken the time to do the work. And even still, man, listen, it still hurts. Like I did not get married to get divorced, right? I never did. Like, that love was genuine. That was real. And even to this moment, it still is painful, not to the degree where I can't function and do what I need to do, but I still feel it.
For someone who's listening to your voice and they hear the pain in your voice, but also the joy.
Yeah.
But they're not feeling that joy right now. Mm-hmm. What's your encouragement to them struggling in singleness or in a broken sideways relationship or upside down financially? They're in the middle of it. What's your encouragement to them?
Yeah, the encouragement is, in order to get to the other side of where you are, there's no other way but through, and that pain isn't a problem. Pain points to the problem.
Tell me what the difference.
So here's the difference. Sometimes as we talked about earlier, we feel pain. So anyone listening right now, it may be in one of those scenarios you're talking about. So you feel the pain of, your financial situation. Well, that's not the problem. That pain is pointing to the problem. Okay, what's the problem? Okay, well, maybe we've been living beyond our means, or maybe we didn't budget correctly, or maybe we need to generate some more revenue. Like, it points to the problem. So if the pain points to the problem, it also points to the solution. And sometimes we're looking at the pain as the problem, right? I'm just trying to get rid of the pain. Okay, I'm not asking you to be a masochist, okay? But what is the pain trying to point you to? So if anyone's listening right now and you're in some, emotional pain, spiritual pain, physical pain, financial pain, before you just rush for the pain to stop, ask the question, what is the pain pointing to? What is it pointing to? Because whatever it's pointing to is the real solution. It's the real solution. So then when you get there, that's when real healing can happen. That's when real revelation can happen. And so, yes, I wish we could all get through this life without pain. But why is pain a necessary part of our experience? We're going to have to ask, when we get to heaven, let's ask God. You know what I mean? Why? But until then, if you're in pain, it's because you're in purpose. And that pain is working for your good if you allow it.
So it's working for your good now. I'm going to shift back in the professional journey for a moment. You are a producer and author and a million other job titles, but you're not one job title. And that one job title you are not is an actor.
Right.
That's above your pay grade, man. That's not what you do.
Yeah.
And then you get a call and someone says, hey, DeVon, I think I got a role for you. But you're not an actor. So what happens there?
Oh, man. Well, the first time I got that call, it was my buddies that did a film called Jesus Revolution. And they called me and said, hey, we have this movie we're doing. We want you to play this part. And I was like, what's the part? And they were like, oh, it's a period piece. You would play this reporter. And my initial, reaction was almost going to be, well, I'm not an actor. But then I said, well, let me read the script. So I read the script and I said, oh, okay. I said, well, yeah, I mean, sure, I like the story. I like the part. Let me do it. So because I've been in entertainment my entire life and been close to Will and, was married to Megan and helped her with her scripts, and I knew the process of what it takes to be an actor and to get on set and be ready. I just relied on what I already knew and got an acting coach to help me. But I was shocked. I was like, oh, I actually know how to do this. I mean, I still need more experience, but I know the fundamentals of how to approach this. And so I went and did Jesus Revolution, and that went really well. And
we got to pause there, man. It's one thing to be behind a camera or to be in a C-suite and make decisions at an executive level, or to be running coffees out to Will Smith's car when you're a kid.
Yeah.
To jump in front of a camera and to become somebody that you're not.
Man.
It is a completely different world. So
Yes,
I know
it is.
you've been in that world, and I know you were married to that world, and I know you've led that world.
Yeah.
But to become an actor in that world it's a mighty leap.
Yeah.
And you did it extraordinary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Jesus Revolution. I mean, you pulled that off as if you are him. So take me through that process quickly.
So what it was breaking down the character, better understanding who he is, creating a bio for the character so that I could understand okay, here's his story. Here's how he got to these moments that were portrayed in the movie.
Right.
And me understanding that then helps me understand, audiences don't necessarily, they don't understand it logically, but they feel oh, okay, they feel what's going on. So for me as a actor preparing that bio, and that may be words that never get said on the screen, but it's my intention. And it helps me transform internally so that then that can be rendered on screen. And so that was great, man. And what was so amazing, there was one amazing thing that happened. I was writing my bio, and now, mind you, I'm just taking what's in the script, but I'm making stuff up for myself, of how I got here. And I studied the script. I learned all my lines. And so I got to set. And one night we were shooting this scene, and I hadn't looked at every day when you're an actor or a producer, they give you what's called sides. And sides are the script pages that are being shot that day. So I hadn't looked at my sides yet, and something said, look at the sides. So I look at the sides, and my biggest scene in the movie that was written as a dialogue in the script, in the new sides, it was more of a monologue. And it had some new word and new sentences and new phrases in there that I was like, oh man, I got to learn this. And then as I read what they wrote, it was almost exactly what I put in my bio. And I never had a conversation with the director or the writer about what I was written. So I was like, oh, I'm ready. All I got to do is learn this, but I already know it because I've already been thinking this way. So that was just like a God wink to me. Like, you're on the right path and I'm opening this door for you and you are ready for it, and just walk in it.
Well, I learned about two guys who I fell in love with after watching that movie. One, I'm seated across from. We could blow kisses back and forth right now across the microphone. The other one is probably home right now in Memphis, Tennessee, named Joel Courtney.
Yes, my brother.
Another great man. And those two came together in a more recently shot film called Soul on Fire.
Yeah.
Finally, DeVon Franklin made it in Hollywood. All right.
Yes.
Moonwalking his way slowly forward. He turns around and starts leaping, baby, into the bright light.
I love it.
What was it about the script for Soul on Fire? A man who has read hundreds of scripts, participated in many, many, many dozens as a producer, and you've been pitched a bunch of projects.
Oh, yeah.
Why Soul on Fire?
The first thing about On Fire was I was sent two videos. I was sent one, the video of the reunion of you and Nurse Roy, that Alabama Power had put on. So I was sent that video, and I watched that, and I was like, oh man, I'm feeling something. This is kind of emotional. I was like, okay, this is good. And then you so graciously did a personalized video. And so I watched your video, and I was really, I didn't know of you. And I was really just humbled and moved by your video. And so I was like, okay, well, yeah, I definitely want to read the script. So then I read the script. And what I liked about it was, it's like, wow, to have experienced that as a kid, how do you go on and have a life? And that just the complexity of that is what kept me reading. Like, how's this all going to turn out, and how do you deal with this? And then also, I loved how the story didn't just focus on like a miraculous healing or recovery, but also dealt with the psychology of recovery.
Amen.
And in a real way. And, you've told your story, many times for your audience, but so they know it. But like the idea of like not really, even though you survived it, not feeling good yourself, in that process. I loved that the script explored that. And then I went to your book and I started reading the On Fire book. And I was like, oh man, yeah, I got to do this. So I hit, Sean, the director, back, and I just said, man, I'd love to be a part of this. And this is also what I do. I do inspirational films for a living. So, it really wasn't that hard. I was just like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of this and help tell this story.
You told, through your acting, the story in the life of a man named Roy. What is it about Roy's specific character that you liked within the script? And we're speaking about the script as if it should have been a piece of paper, 130 pages long, and not real. But these are real people.
Absolutely.
Who really took cars to work and walked in and did difficult things day after day.
Yeah.
And in doing so well, we're part of other people's miracles.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that to me was one of the things I loved about the character of Nurse Roy, which is obviously based on the real Roy, was, being just an everyday person who was a miracle facilitator, right? And so I did some research, and I talked to nurses, in the burn unit, and talked to, nurses that they've done this pretty much their entire career. And, what they told me, which made me have even more respect for Roy, was that at the end of the day, a nurse certainly is going to do their job, but in some cases you get personally invested. And I think Roy did that. He got personally invested. And that for me was compelling, that he didn't have to, yes, get you up and walk you. Okay, sure, that may have been part of his job, but to tell you, listen, you're going to walk. On my watch, you're going to walk. That level of belief, that level of love, that level of care, and that level of strength to know that you as a child, we're in pain.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to pander to your pain. Because if you don't push through this, you are never going to walk. So yeah, it's going to hurt, but I guarantee you it's going to be worth it.
Man, you brought so much of your own joy into that role.
Yeah.
And all of the actors added a little bit or took out a little bit to make it more unique to them and who they thought, how they thought it ultimately should be performed. You took sweeping movements within the script to truly make it yours.
Yeah.
But at the same time, remaining consistently true to Roy
Yeah.
and the story.
Yes.
And I love everybody who participated in the movie. I truly love them. So you can't pick a favorite child.
Right.
But man, if they had to, I'm partying for them right now, only because the way you stepped into that little boy's room and his life and did not pander to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a long project to make a movie.
Yeah.
And I was emotional during lots of it, but never more emotional than the scenes with Nurse Roy.
Yeah.
Because I think you were more him than anybody else in that movie. You became Roy beautifully.
Thank you.
Was that hard for you to pick a little boy and got him into the band? Like, is that hard for you emotionally, or are you just, nah, it's on the script and I'll do that and then we'll turn the page and do the next part?
No, with especially those scenes that I, had, where I had to pick him up and drive him down the hall or walk him. All that was very natural. I have nieces that I've kind of helped take care of since they were born, and now they're 14 and 10, and I have nephews. And then also my mother used to own a daycare center. So my entire life I was always around kids and always kind of taking care of kids.
Yes.
There was a kid she used to keep who had autism, and for whatever reason, like, he wouldn't sit still, but whenever I was there, he would come sit on my lap and would watch TV and be still. And then I had a godson, I was keeping from the time he was like 2. I was keeping him every weekend, almost from the time he was 2 to maybe like 6 or 7. So I've just always had an affinity for kids, always just love them. So when it came to this, it wasn't hard. It was just like, oh, I know what to do here.
I'm not sure you were acting. I'm pretty sure you were just having fun.
Just having fun.
You got paid to have fun for a couple of weeks of your life at home.
And just being in the moment. Just being in the moment. Like, okay, here's this kid who is wrapped up and in pain. And then for me, when he, because also in the script, Roy, and in the real story, Roy was calling you boy, boy, you're going to do this, and boy, you're going to do that. And so I was just like, okay, where does this come from? Like, why is he calling boy? Not that I had a problem with it. I was just trying to ground it and try to understand. And so that's when it made me think like, oh, I'm going to call him boy, for Boy Wonder, and that's the nickname for Robin. So if he's Robin, that means I got to be Batman. It just was logical to me. So I just brought that and played with it. And thankfully, it seemed to work.
It worked brilliant. So
Thank
touching,
you.
man. I'm every time I see it, I'm moved to tears.
Wow.
And not tears of pain.
Yeah.
You behind you over your right shoulder are some incredible leaders. One of them is Martin Luther King Jr. And I mean, we could spend 11 podcasts on him, but one of my favorite speeches is in Philadelphia to a group of middle school age kids.
Wow.
Where he talks about the dignity of work. And regardless of what you are called to do in life, do it well.
Yes.
And he's referring to not if you become a president, be a good president. Become a Hollywood actor, do it well.
Yeah.
He's talking about sweeping streets.
That's right.
Sweeping streets.
Yes.
And as he finishes this speech, middle school kids in Philadelphia are on their feet clapping. And I think that celebration of ordinary work is overlooked today.
Yes, it is.
And your role,
Ordinary
DeVon Franklin, celebrated ordinary work done well, being part of someone else's miracle.
Amen.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
so
powerful.
It fires me up. All right, dude. It's midnight somewhere, so we're going to begin moving this thing toward its appropriate conclusion. The majority of the quotes that I have down here are yours, but one of them is your grandfather's. I'm living in the blessings.
Yeah.
What does that mean, man? I'm living in the blessings.
Oh, man. Yeah, man. Brother Clavon, Brother Alvin Clavon, who passed away recently, whenever I would ask him how he was doing, that was his answer. I'm living in the blessings. Didn't matter how sick he was, didn't matter. I'm living in the blessings. And what that means to me is when we have a understanding of God's goodness, then we can always live in the blessing. because even in a moment that is difficult, we're still alive to experience it. And that just being alive is a blessing. So yeah, I mean, things may not be going the way I want per se, but I can still say I'm living in the blessings. And that to me is definitely something that I take with me, as a way to honor him. And then also just to give myself perspective, because sometimes when you're going through difficult things, you don't think about the blessings. You're like, God, I need blessings. He's like, no, you're living in them right now. So that's a statement and a saying that always, brought me joy when he would say it, and certainly something I'm aspiring to live by today.
Anything we suppress, we empower.
Yes. It's very much in line with what we've been talking about. So
I'm going to get that on my right arm. That's popular earlier in LA tonight. I mean, it's so mighty, but tell me and our listeners what that means.
Yeah, anything we suppress, we empower. So going back to what we talked about, like that pain. So let's say there's a feeling that we need to do something, or there's something that we just keep feeling like, oh, I'm either angry or I'm frustrated, but I'm not supposed to be angry. I'm not supposed to be frustrated. So I suppress that emotion. I suppress it. I'm not going to acknowledge it. I'm going to act like it's not there. I'm going to be in denial. Well, that feeling, whatever we resist, persists. So that feeling, just because we try not to acknowledge it, doesn't mean that it goes away. It doesn't. It means that it actually becomes stronger. So then why do we fly off the handle when someone just said something to us? Why is it that we all of a sudden are very angry, or all of a sudden we're just like unhappy and we can't even explain it? Because that feeling has been empowered. It's grown. And so that's why I said earlier, hey, don't suppress it. Acknowledge it. Even if you don't like what you have to acknowledge, there's power in that, so that you can alleviate the power from that the suppression will create. And so for me, I had to start saying, okay, going back to what we're talking about, like, hey, I don't want to acknowledge the pain of my divorce. I don't want to acknowledge my heartbreak. I don't want to. Okay, but I need to. Because if I don't, and I suppress it and just say, hey, I'm good, I'm fine, it's going to come out. And whenever it comes out, it's going to come out more aggressively, and it's going to be more detrimental, and it's going to be more destructive than if I would just take the time and acknowledge how I'm feeling. A lot of times we don't acknowledge it because we don't know what to do with it. Let the how be its own process. The first part of the process is acknowledging it and not suppressing it.
How well are you preparing for what you're praying for?
Yes, I love that, man. Yeah, that's I love that. That's good, man. I can. That's a good one. There's the scripture that says faith without works is dead. So if I look at it in the context of praying and preparing, so it's like, okay, so if I have faith over something, but then my works, my actions don't support my faith, then I really don't have faith in it. So if I'm praying and I'm not preparing to receive what I'm praying for, then I really don't believe that it's coming. So that's what it's about. It's about the preparation process, because that preparation is an act of faith. Because I'm preparing for something that does not physically exist yet, but I'm believing it's on the way.
It's probably a made-up story, but I've heard another pastor share the story of when there was a drought in Kansas, and everybody came up to church to pray for rain, but only one little kid brought an umbrella. And it's this idea of expecting it, man.
Yeah.
Believing to such a degree where you expect it.
That's right. Absolutely. And it's another way of living, but I find it to be a very powerful one. A very, very powerful one. And what I mean by that is, so often we wait for a manifestation. We wait till we see it to believe it. But it actually is supposed to go the other way. I'm supposed to believe it, and then I'll see it. And that idea of like really aligning our life, like, no, I believe I'm going to make it. I believe, whatever the situation is that you may be in, I'm believing that this is what's going to happen, or this is what God's going to do. So I'm going to, and some people might call me delusional, like, oh, that's a delusional thought. Well, yeah, it might be, but I'm still believing. And I'm still going to let my life, if somebody looks at my life, I want them to see faith. I mean, that's, for me personally, that's, I was like, if you watch me or you follow me and you don't see faith, then don't follow me. Like, it's not just in what I say. I'm just saying in terms of how I live, how I move, what I'm doing. I want you to see that I am truly out here living what I'm talking about, because I do believe in that.
We could take a tangent on that right now and talk about one of the sermons that I saw you deliver on the blind men who followed Jesus. They were being unable to see, but they were already following.
Yes.
Instead, I'm going to ask you about a quote that I don't see on my little sheet in front of me, but instead I see it on your right arm.
Oh, yeah.
We go to this. DeVon and I go to the same gym.
That's right. That's right.
My brother and I work at the same place. He just has a better looking tattoo than I. What are the two words on your right arm?
Love wins.
What does that quote mean?
Interestingly enough, when Megan and I were on our, book tour for The Wait, when I would sign our book, I would always sign Love Wins. And, I got this tattoo probably 2 months before the divorce. And it was just a reminder.
Knowing that the divorce was coming?
I knew it was happening. Yeah, I knew it was happening. And so for me, it was just a reminder that no matter what, love wins at the end of the day. And that is love of self, love of God, love of others. And I believe when the way I kind of look at love is as love means well-being. So if I love someone, then I am committed to their well-being. Their well-being is important to me. So for me, when I think about love winning, it's like at the end of the day, that is the only way to navigate the challenges of life. And if anything, spiritually, the enemy does not want us to love. Right? You go back to Martin Luther King. It's like, man, he talked about love being the most powerful force in the universe. And it's true. God is love. So for me, writing this on my arm, even in a moment when love was seemingly not working, I wanted to be reminded that even in the face of divorce, that love is still going to win.
DeVon Franklin, we have 7 questions that tether all of our mighty guests together.
Okay.
They're called the Live Inspired 7. So let's roll, man. As love wins and guides us forward, what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Ooh. The most impactful book I've ever read would probably be The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn.
Tell me about it.
Oh, man, this book is deep, man. She basically talks about, uses scripture and talks about what it means to understand who you are, what it means to believe, what it means to manifest, what it means to understand, like, so much of our external world is because of what's going on in our internal world. Like, when I read the book, I was like, whoa, it was like, I felt like I was just, awakening, because I was really learning, like, oh, wow, a lot of what can happen in life has a lot to do with my belief system. In the scripture talks about it, according to your faith be it unto you, but that book really brings that to light.
What's one positive characteristic or one trait that you possess as a young boy growing up in Oakland that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today in LA?
Oh, man, I was very, what's the word? I was really, not that I'm not now, but I was really bold and very, I just didn't, I just, but I'm like, man, but I was more carefree in that way. Like, for example, this was not when I was a kid, but once I got to Hollywood and I was interning, we were, Benny Medina, who I was working for at the time as an intern, me and the other assistants were in the office very late one night preparing him for a trip that he was going on to. He was, I think, traveling overseas to meet Michael Jackson. And it was probably like midnight. He was done. He was going to go to the airport. And right there in that moment, I said, hey, do you mind if I pray for you for traveling mercies? And he was like, what? I was like, do you mind if I pray for you for traveling mercies? Like, okay. So we all got in a prayer circle. I said, okay, everybody hold hand, did it. And so, I say, wow, I was just bold, and now I probably may be like, well, let me think about that. And how's that going to come across and that kind of thing. So just being bold and carefree is something that I was. And I may, even after you asking me this question, I might have to really get back to that.
We do. If your beautiful condo where you and I are recording this catches fire and all living things are out and you have an opportunity of coming back in here and grabbing one item, one physical thing, what would you grab onto and run back outside with?
My phone. That's probably, truthfully, like, that's probably the only thing that I would be needing. Because also, again, we're just having an honest conversation. Like, everything in here is predominantly new because most of my personal things are still in storage from when Megan and I moved out. So,
Let's talk about that then. So the storage unit catches fire.
Oh my goodness. And
all living things are out. And you have an opportunity of running in there. Because you're right, this condo is so clean and pristine that I don't know what has intrinsic value. So in that storage unit, man, it just caught. Grab onto one thing. What's the one thing you would grab?
With some intrinsic value, what would I grab? Probably, I think I still have it. There was a handkerchief that my uncle used to baptize me. Yeah. And I've had that,
No offense to your first answer. I just like the second one. Someone, man.
Yeah.
Let the phone burn.
Yeah.
I'll pick you up. We'll go to AT&T.
But
man,
that.
Let's get the handkerchief.
Let's get the handkerchief. Yeah, man.
I'm emotional thinking about it.
Wow.
If you are having an opportunity of hanging out on a bench on a gorgeous day and having a long conversation with anybody, living or deceased.
Yeah.
Who would you like to be seated to see you?
Oh, man. Muhammad Ali. I would love that. It's like, again, going back to boldness. I just watched his videos and he was just so bold and so larger than life, but so grounded at the same time and entirely charismatic. I'd love to talk to him. That to me would be the conversation. And obviously, like, I would say probably even before that, Jesus, let's sit down on this bench.
Let's scoot over a little bit. We got to make room.
Right. We both of them, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
What's the best advice Jesus, Ali, your parents, Will Smith, anybody else ever gave you? So the best advice DeVon Franklin ever received is?
That's a good question. I've gotten so much good advice. And one of those statements that comes up is my Aunt Donna, who was kind of like a second mom to me. She would always say, never burn a bridge because you never know when you have to cross it. Again.
That's in your book.
Yeah, and I really have lived by that. And it has been so true. It's been so true. Like, there were situations and circumstances that I could have justifiably at that time burned, and I didn't. And who knew years later that would be a bridge I'd have to cross. And the bridge was still intact because I didn't destroy it. And that also is like a corollary to the other part of it, which is how you start out is how you're going to end up. And my interpretation was just like, people don't remember a good start. They only remember how it ended, period. And so if you burn a bridge, the last impression that someone's going to have, they're not going to think about how great it was started. They're going to think about how it ended. And their perception of you is not going to be about the start. It's going to be about the ending. So if you started well, you got to end well.
What advice would you give yourself at age 20? So go back to that junior at USC. What wisdom would you offer?
Man, listen. You're going to be fine. You better have some fun. You better have fun. You know what I mean? Like, you just listen. Look at your boy, John O'Leary. Look how he handled college, man. Go have some fun, okay? He's all right.
Differently than O'Leary, you would not be seated here right now.
Man, yeah, that's what I would really say. Have fun. Enjoy. Because at 20 years old, I was focused. And there's nothing wrong. You can still be focused and have fun. But I think I didn't really give enough space for me to just be and to just live and learn and explore and enjoy. So that's what I would say. I would say relax, have fun. It's all going to be fine.
We almost made it. Question number 7. It has been said, DeVon Franklin, that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
Who said that?
And John F. Kennedy is the one that heard those words during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I forget who it was, whether it was RFK or someone else. But they said, Mr. President, all lives can be summed up in one sentence. This is your moment. Define it.
Man, that one sentence for me would be faith works. That would be it. Because I think if someone were to look at my life, and really take one thing away, one sentence, like, wow, faith really does work.
DeVon Franklin, faith works.
Yeah.
Love wins.
Yeah.
You're my friend. I look up to you. I respect you. And I know that your best is yet to come.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
My friends, this is the great DeVon Franklin. He is a phenomenal producer, author, speaker, pastor, brother, friend, actor. And I didn't use that one yet. And I feel supremely fortunate to call you my friend. So,
Thank you.
DeVon,
Likewise,
thank you for
my
making
brother.
time.
Thanks
so my
for having
friends
me.
tuning in, what a story for this time. And until next time,
Yeah.
faith works, love wins, and the best is yet to come.
Amen.
My friends, I told you on the front side of the conversation, you were going to love the conversation with Nurse Roy, a.k.a. DeVon Franklin. He is a phenomenal producer. He's an incredible human being, and he does a simply outstanding job of bringing my hero, this nurse named Roy, to life on the big screen. Speaking to life on the big screen, do you know that you can get your tickets to the big screen showing theaters around the country and beyond by visiting me online at soulonfiremovie.com. That's right. You can get yours right now. The film comes out live October 10th in theaters around the country and beyond. Go to soulonfiremovie.com. Find out where it's playing in your area. Make sure you secure your seats right now. And if you want to be inspired, not only for yourself, but for those that you hang out with, that you raise, that you live with, that you work out with, that you work next to, that you worship with, what better opportunity than right now to grab a seat or 2 or 10 or 50 to come into the theater as you are and leave, my friends, an hour and 42 minutes later, transformed for good. Go to the website right now, get your tickets. It's soulonfiremovie.com. And to ensure that you have access to all of these podcasts as they drop, wherever you are tuning into this episode, why not like, follow, subscribe, so that each progressive podcast that drops, you'll have access to. My friends, I want to thank you for being part of our Live Inspired podcast movement. I want to thank you for joining us during this conversation. And I want to remind you that the foundation is firm, that God is still God, and that the best is yet to come. So for this time and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. Today is your day. What a gift. Live with your soul on fire.
Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son, Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.